Hello everyone, welcome back to Blockman Editor tutorial. In these videos, we will give you a complete introduction to the Blockman Editor. In this video, we will introduce the action nodes related to the union and the Meshpart. Alright, let's get started. Enter the editor, place two parts in the scene, and adjust their position and size. Select them in turn and click on the subtract option in the top menu bar. Now, we have successfully created a union. Open the trigger edit interface of this union, click the new button, and select any trigger node. Drag the list of action nodes from the execution port. Find the union node, expand the node, and you can see that there are many action nodes under this node. They are the action nodes related to the union. These nodes look very similar to the part nodes. In fact, the effect of these nodes is almost the same as the effect of the corresponding part nodes, only the game object is different. Like setting the position, towards, and size of the union has the same effect as setting the position, towards, and size of the part. Therefore, the nodes of the union's position, towards, size, appearance, collision, destroy, etc., will not be introduced in this video. You can learn how to use these nodes by watching the tutorial that introduces the part action nodes, and come back and try to use the corresponding nodes for the union. First, let's look at the action node that sets the union's physical properties. They are set the velocity of the union, and set the angular velocity of the union respectively. These two nodes correspond to the velocity property, and the angular velocity property of the union. They are usually used to change the velocity and angular velocity of the union for the purpose of creating some kind of trap or obstacle. Note that for both the velocity and angular velocity parameters, from left to right, the input boxes on the nodes correspond to the x-axis, y-axis, and z-axis direction for the velocity and angular velocity. Next, let's look at the action node set the gravity of the union. This node is simply used to turn on or off the gravity property of the union. For an unancoured union, when the union's gravity property is turned on, the union will be affected by gravity and will fall to the ground if the union is high up in the air. For an unancoured union, when the union's gravity property is turned off, the union will remain floating if it is high up in the air. Lastly, let's look at the action node set constraint of the part. This node is currently only used to turn off the part constraint, and cannot be used to turn on the part constraint. For the constraint parameter, we need to connect the node that gets the constraint, and fill in the corresponding constraint name. Note that the part node, the Meshpart node, and the union node all have nodes that get constraints under them. In general, we want to select the node that corresponds to the trigger node. For example, if we select the when the union is click trigger node, then we need to select the constraint node under the union node. The part parameter in the obtain the constraint of the part node should be connected to the node with the matching type. For example, if the part parameter is the union type, then we can only connect union. Then you can fill in the constraint name and the constraint name parameter. As for the enable parameter, just leave it unchecked. We open the action node list, find the Meshpart node, and expand the node. You can see that there are many nodes under this node, similar to the nodes of the part and the union. The effect of the action nodes for the Meshpart is the same as the action nodes for the part and the union, except that these nodes can only be used for Meshparts. You can watch the videos on the introduction of the part and union related nodes, and then try to use the action nodes of the Meshpart. More details about the nodes can be found in the user manual on the official website. Let's look at the example's effect. When the players walk to the surface of the model, they will be bounced up. With a union model ready in the scene, we select the model and open its trigger edit interface. Click the New button and select the when the union is touched by an entity trigger node. Drag out the action node list, and select the Set the velocity of a union node under the union node. For the part parameter, select the union that was touched under the current trigger parameters node. Fill in the velocity parameter in order with 0, 20, 0. When that's done, go back to the editor, click Run, and let's see the results. You can see that when the player walks onto the surface of the model, the player is bounced upwards. Let's take a look at the example's effect. There is an object suspended by a rope above the flagpole. When the player launches a missile and hits the object will fall down. Return to the editor. The scene is already prepared for the contents of the example, and we select the object hanging by a rope in the scene. In the Game Resources view, you can see that the selected object is a Meshpart. The rope is implemented using constraints. If we want to achieve the effect we just described, then we just need to turn off the part constraint under the Meshpart when the Meshpart is hit by a missile. Open the Trigger Edit interface of the Meshpart. Click the New button and select the trigger node when an entity launches a missile and the missile hits the Meshpart. Drag the action node list from the execution port, and find the set constraint of the part node under the Meshpart node. The constraint parameter connects to obtain the constraints of the part under the Meshpart node. The part parameter connects to the Meshpart that was hit under the current trigger parameters node. The constraint name parameter can be filled with the constraint name of the rope. As for the enable parameter, we leave it unchecked. Go back to the editor and add the prepared launch missile skill to the player in the battle properties of the player entity. Click Run and let's see the results. You can see that when the missile hits the Meshpart falls down from above. That's all for this video. We hope it can help you on your way to a great creator. If you want to know more about the editor, you can comment below the video or post on the official forum. See you in the next video.